The boardroom shimmered under golden New York sunlight, its walls lined with glass, its chairs filled with men in dark suits. At the head of the marble table, billionaire investor Karim Al-Masri leaned forward and spoke calmly in Arabic. Most of the room didn't understand a word, except the translator sitting beside him, who nodded quickly and began summarizing. "The clause allows for flexibility in compliance," he said in English. But the janitor in the corner stopped wiping the glass. He'd been silent all morning, blending into the edge of the room in his dark uniform, a mop tucked under one arm, a spray bottle dangling from his belt. No one had noticed him. No one ever did. "Excuse me," he said, quietly but clearly. Heads turned. The billionaire's translator paused, confused. "I believe what he said," the janitor continued, switching effortlessly into Arabic, "was not about compliance flexibility. It was a backdoor override clause. If they sign this, they lose control of the asset retroactively." A silence hit the room like a falling brick. Every executive froze. Chairs creaked. The billionaire stopped mid-breath. "You speak Arabic?" Karim asked, this time in English, his voice sharp. "I do," the janitor replied in Arabic. "And I understand the difference between intention and manipulation." No one moved. "Who is he?" someone whispered. "Just a janitor," muttered another. The janitor didn't flinch. He stood straight, his voice steady, his tone respectful but firm. "I didn't mean to interrupt, but I couldn't stay silent while you buried that clause." Karim narrowed his eyes. "You think you know what this contract means?" "I know exactly what it means," the janitor said, "because I've written ones like it before. I used to audit investment agreements in Qatar before I moved here." The translator blinked and looked down at his notes. Sweat formed at his temple. "Security," Karim barked. "Remove him." "Hold on," came a voice from the table. It was Robert Langston, the senior legal advisor for the U.S. firm. "Let him finish." Karim looked furious, but didn't interrupt again. The janitor stepped forward, placed his cleaning rag neatly on the table beside him, and said calmly, "The clause, as worded, grants override power without consent. If you sign it, your firm gives up full authority." Everyone stared. "You're not part of this negotiation," Karim said coldly. "No," the janitor replied, "but maybe I should be. Hi, my name is Malik. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, please hit like and subscribe right now. Your support helps us shine a light on real injustice." Later that afternoon, in a side hallway behind the executive wing, the janitor stood alone near the service elevator. His badge still worked. No one had officially told him to leave yet, but every glance from passing staff was sharper than usual. Not curious, not kind, measured. "Hey," said a familiar voice. It was Denise, the receptionist from the front desk. Black like him, maybe early 30s. She walked up holding a paper cup of coffee and handed it over. "You good?" she asked. He nodded but didn't smile. "I heard what happened upstairs," she added. "Whole building buzzing." "Yeah," he muttered. "Didn't plan it. Just couldn't unhear it." She gave a short laugh. "Yeah, well, you shook a $3 billion table. With a mop in your hand." He took a sip of the coffee. It was bitter, but warm. He didn't talk much about himself. That was on purpose. People didn't ask. And when they did, they didn't really want to hear the truth. Back in the janitor's closet on the basement floor, he opened his locker and pulled out a worn notebook. Inside were old scribbles, diagrams, clauses, some highlighted, some scratched out. He flipped to a page titled Anti-Manipulation Triggers, Sovereign Override Loopholes. His own handwriting from 6 years ago. Once upon a time, he was a compliance analyst in Doha. Made 6 figures, managed risk reviews, caught 2 ministers laundering public funds. That's when the trouble started. He was warned to stop digging. He didn't. A month later, his contract was restructured, his visa revoked, and the life he'd built crumbled. He flew back to the States with 2 suitcases, no job, and a mother in hospice care. Now he scrubbed bathrooms on the 34th floor. But he never stopped watching. Contracts left in shred bins. Loose pages on tables. He'd read them quietly during night shifts, marking the red flags in his head. And now, the one time he spoke, it had landed like a hammer. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Is this Mr. Adams?" "That depends. This is Evelyn Ross, General Manager of Empire Grand. I'd like to see you in my office." 15 minutes. He hesitated. "Should I bring anything?" "Bring whatever you need to explain what just happened upstairs." The call ended. He stood still for a second, then pulled out a flash drive from the notebook's back cover. Years of templates, flags, case notes, his private audit collection. Back upstairs, Denise gave him a quiet nod as he walked past the desk. As he approached the 31st floor, a white executive stepped out of the elevator, gave him a puzzled glance, and said, "They got you cleaning this high now?" "No," Adams said simply. "They asked me to explain a contract." The doors closed. Inside the GM's office, Evelyn looked up from her desk, steel gray hair tied back, expression unreadable. "Sit," she said. "He did. What you said earlier," she began, "wasn't just correct. It might have just saved this entire firm." He didn't answer. She leaned forward. "So now I need to ask. Mr. Adams, are you just a janitor?" Adams sat still, shoulders square, face calm. Evelyn Ross stared at him a beat longer, then leaned back. "I read your file," she said. "You didn't list anything about international finance." He gave a small shrug. "Didn't think mop buckets needed resumes." She folded her arms. "You worked in Qatar?" 5 years. Sovereign Risk Division. I flagged loopholes before billion-dollar contracts turned into diplomatic disasters." She tapped her desk. "Why didn't you list any of that?" "Because the minute I did," he said, "the questions would have changed from 'Can you clean this floor?' to 'Why are you here?' And I couldn't afford to be here without a job." A pause. "Look," she said, her voice softening. "What you caught, if it went through, it would have handed full authority to Al-Masri's firm. No recourse, no rollback. That kind of oversight isn't an oversight. That's design." He nodded once. "I know," she exhaled. "Legal's re-reviewing the draft, but I want your eyes on it. I'm not licensed." "You don't need to be," she replied. "Just tell us where it bleeds." He stood to leave. "Adams," she said, "don't disappear." Back in the basement, everything felt louder. The AC hum, the echo of the mop bucket's wheels, the silence of people watching him now as if he didn't belong here anymore, as if he never did. In the break room, Mike from security gave him a tight grin. "Heard you caused a boardroom panic." "Didn't mean to," Adams replied. Mike leaned closer. "You made Al-Masri stutter. That billionaire hasn't stuttered in his life." But not everyone was impressed. At his locker, a sticky note was waiting. "Stay in your lane." He peeled it off slowly, folded it into his pocket without a word. The next morning, he arrived 10 minutes early. Only this time, his badge didn't work. He scanned again. Access denied. He stepped back. A new security guard, young, white, wide-chested, watched him through the glass. "You got clearance for this floor?" "I work here." "Doing what?" "Janitorial, night crew. Special consult as of yesterday." The guard raised an eyebrow. "That's so?" Adams held up the signed pass Evelyn had given him. The guard scanned it twice, frowning. Finally, he opened the door. "Don't get used to it," he muttered. On the 33rd floor, a cluster of executives watched him walk past like he'd grown an extra head. A few whispered. One chuckled. "Got promoted from toilets to treaties." One of them mumbled. Adams said nothing. At the legal review room, a young associate blocked his way. "This area's restricted." I was asked to review the compliance file. Who asked you? Evelyn Ross. The associate hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, the documents were spread across a conference table. As he sat down, a familiar voice spoke behind him. You just don't know when to quit. It was Kareem Al-Masri, arms crossed, expression icy. You embarrassed me in my own language. Now you're here again. Adams looked up, unshaken. I'm not here for you. Kareem leaned closer. No. You're here because someone like you knows how to sniff for scraps. Adams met his stare. Maybe. But someone like me also knows how to read what's buried in fine print. Kareem stepped back, jaw tight. You don't belong at this table. Adams replied quietly, maybe not, but neither does corruption. If you're still watching, drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that matter. You've made your point, Kareem said coldly. Now go back to whatever closet you came from. Adams stayed seated, his voice even. If I go back, I'll take this contract with me. And the press will be interested in how you tried to sell override rights to a foreign fund under a compliance clause. Kareem's lips curled, but he said nothing. From the hallway, Evelyn Ross entered briskly. She looked from Kareem to Adams. Problem? Not yet, Adams said. Kareem gave her a sharp glance, then left without another word. Evelyn nodded toward the documents. You've got 2 hours. I need your full read before noon. He got to work. Each clause twisted more than the last. Buried ownership shifts. Trigger words that nullified oversight. Temporary equity suspension masking full buyout power. He highlighted, annotated, and flagged everything. His hands moved with rhythm, like muscle memory returning. By 11:47, the draft was bleeding in red ink. At 11:59, Evelyn stepped in again. You finished. Adams slid the marked-up contract across the table. Every section that transfers authority without countersignature is here. And this clause, Article 14, can be used to revoke U.S. jurisdiction altogether. She read a few lines, her expression sharpening. You did all this in 2 hours? Adams stood. I've done worse under fire. She looked up at him. You want back in? He didn't answer immediately. Evelyn studied his silence. I'm not asking for loyalty. I'm asking if you're willing to be seen again. He nodded once. Just don't ask me to stay quiet. She almost smiled. We won't. That evening, Adams walked into his one-bedroom apartment in Harlem. Small, creaky floors, radiator ticking like a tired clock. He placed the marked-up copy on his table beside a photo of his mother. She'd passed last year. Never got to see him wear a tie again. He boiled water, made tea, and pulled out a thick black binder from under his bed. Inside were years of notes, compliance breakdowns, offshore schemes, whistleblower cases. Highlighted names. Arrows between shell companies. A personal war diary, written in silence. He started cross-checking. Halfway through a page, his phone buzzed. Message from Denise. You okay? Saw your face on the 34th floor today. Made my whole week. He smiled faintly and replied, They haven't fired me yet. That's something. She texted back, It's more than something. It's a start. The next morning, Adams stepped back into the building, wearing clean-pressed slacks and a dark blazer over his janitor's shirt. A few employees nodded. One man muttered, Didn't know he even talked. Denise saw him from across the lobby and raised her coffee in salute. He walked to the elevator. On the top floor, a golf partner waited. You're Adams. Yes. You'll sit beside Ms. Ross. The sheik wants clarity before he signs anything. Adams nodded, stepped into the glass boardroom, and placed the contract in front of Kareem without a word. This time, no one laughed. Kareem didn't touch the contract. Instead, he stared at Adams like a man staring through glass. You think you're clever, he said. Adams didn't blink. I think I'm right. Kareem slowly turned the first page, scanning the red ink annotations. The other board members looked on, some with confusion, others with quiet admiration. None dared to speak. One man leaned over to Evelyn Ross and whispered, "Is he your new compliance officer?" "Not yet," she replied. "But he's the only reason you're not signing a disaster." Kareem slammed the contract shut. "This is an insult." "To who?" Adams asked. "The people you were about to rob?" Kareem stood. "I don't take lectures from floor cleaners." Adams stood too. "And I don't need a title to spot theft." The room was dead silent. The sheik's assistant leaned over to Evelyn. "Will your firm still honor the audit timeline?" She nodded. "We'll extend the due diligence process and ensure transparency." Adams glanced at Kareem. Translation: "No more games." Kareem's jaw twitched. Later that day, back in the break room, Adams found his locker empty. His name tag gone. In its place was a folded letter. He opened it. "Janitorial role has been formally concluded. Further details available with HR." Below it, a handwritten line. "You should have stayed in your lane." He exhaled once and pocketed the paper. Denise walked in behind him. "They really let you go?" "They let the mop go," he said. "Not me." She smirked. "You're coming back, aren't you?" "That depends on what office they give me." That evening, Evelyn called. "HR will process your termination from facilities," she said flatly. "But you'll be issued a new contract tomorrow. Temporary consultant status. Review, analysis, oversight. For how long? Until we close the Kareem deal. Maybe longer." "Why me?" "Because your silence spoke louder than any resume I've ever seen." The next morning, Adams walked into the building wearing a full suit. Crisp white shirt, subtle tie, polished shoes. No mop, no bucket. People turned to stare, not with confusion, this time with recognition. He passed the janitor's supply room. Inside, a new worker mopped the floor. Young, nervous. Adams paused. "Don't let them tell you where you belong," he said gently. "Learn everything, even if they never ask you to." The janitor blinked, surprised, then nodded slowly. Adams kept walking. On the 31st floor, Evelyn handed him a new badge. Malik Adams, Corporate Ethics and Oversight. He looked at the card, then back at her. "You sure about this?" "No," she said, "but I'm sure about you." He clipped the badge onto his blazer. Later, at the final Kareem meeting, the billionaire sat stone-faced as Adams presented a revised agreement, transparent, fair, binding under U.S. jurisdiction. The sheik signed. Kareem didn't. He stood and left the room, silently. As the elevator doors closed behind him, Adams whispered under his breath, "That's the difference between a cleaner and a crook." 2 weeks later, Adams sat alone in a private office. Window view, leather chair, new laptop. But the door still had no nameplate. He didn't ask for one. He sipped his coffee slowly, reviewing another international draft. No shady clauses this time. No tricks. Maybe they'd learned. Or maybe they just knew he was watching now. There was a knock. Denise leaned in. "You busy?" "Always," he smiled. "What's up?" She stepped in holding a box. Mailroom dropped this off. No return label. He opened it carefully. Inside was a polished black fountain pen and a folded note. "For the man who rewrote the ending. ER." He held the pen for a moment before placing it neatly beside his screen. Denise looked around. "So this is the new chapter, huh?" "I guess so." She nodded. "Don't let them freeze you out. White-collar walls are thicker than concrete." "I noticed," he said, "but cracks always let light in." As she left, another knock followed. This time it was Langston, the same senior legal advisor who'd once ignored him in the hallway. "You got a minute?" Langston asked. Adams stood. "Sure." Langston stepped in. "Listen, I was wrong about you. When you first spoke up, I thought it was a stunt. I know, Adams said calmly. But I've read your annotations. I've seen your work. It's sharp. Thank you. Langston hesitated. If you're open to it, I'd like you to co-review the Bahrain portfolio next week. It's tricky. We could use eyes like yours. Adams looked him straight in the eye. I don't want charity, Langston. Not offering any, he said. I'm offering respect. Adams gave a short nod. Then I'm in. After he left, Adams closed his laptop. He stood and walked to the window. 34 floors below, the city pulsed. The same city that once ignored him, that once made him invisible. He thought of his mother, the woman who cleaned houses her whole life. The woman who used to say, "They might not give you a seat, baby, but that don't mean you stop building the table." Behind him, his office door creaked open again. It was the young janitor from earlier, the one Adams had spoken to in the supply room. "Sir," the boy said nervously. I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For talking to me. For showing me that we don't have to stay where they put us." Adams smiled faintly. "What's your name?" "Darnell." "Darnell," he said. "You learn everything you can. Not for them. For you." The boy nodded. "I will." Adams reached into his drawer, pulled out an old, worn notebook, and handed it over. "Start here." The boy took it, eyes wide. As he walked out, Adams sat back down, his fingers brushing the fountain pen. He may have entered as a janitor, but now he was writing history. A month later, the firm held a private gala in Midtown, a celebration of the international deal Adams had helped salvage. Adams wasn't invited, not officially, but as he exited the elevator in his dark navy suit, heads turned. People who once walked past him in silence now nodded, extended hands, tried to recall his name like it had always mattered. Denise greeted him at the entrance with a glass of sparkling cider. "Glad you came." "I almost didn't," he admitted. "Why?" "Because I still remember how invisible I was in this same building." She clinked her glass against his. "And now," he scanned the room, "now they remember me." On stage, Evelyn Ross stepped up to the mic. "We were nearly manipulated into surrendering control of our most strategic investment," she said to the crowd. "But someone saw the truth, because he understood what silence hides." She gestured. "Malik Adams, would you please join me?" Applause rolled through the hall as Adams made his way up. He didn't smile. He didn't bow. He just stood tall. "I was just doing my job," he said into the mic. "Even if no one believed I belonged in the room." More applause. Later, outside under the Manhattan skyline, Adams stood alone, watching the city hum. A familiar voice called out, "Kareem El-Masri." "Quite the promotion," he said flatly, stepping beside him. Adams didn't look at him. "Didn't think you'd show your face again. I came for business, not sentiment." "You lost both." Kareem stared ahead. "You think this win changes the system?" "No," Adams said. "But it changes me." Kareem smirked. "You'll always be the janitor in their eyes." Adams finally turned to him. "Maybe, but I'm the janitor who rewrote your contract, dismantled your con, and exposed your lie, in a language you thought no one understood." Kareem's expression darkened. "And next time," Adams added, "choose a room without witnesses." Kareem walked away without a word. Back inside, Darnell waited in the lobby, holding a printed paper. "They accepted my application," he said. "I'm starting night classes. Finance." Adams smiled. "That's what I'm talking about. You think I got a shot?" "I think they're not ready for you." Darnell laughed, nervous. "Feels like everything's changing." Adams placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's because it is." As he walked away, Adams paused by the old supply closet. He opened the door, stepped inside briefly, looked around at the mop, the bucket, the faint smell of bleach. Then he shut the door, slowly, firmly. The past was still there, but it didn't own him anymore. Outside, the wind picked up, and as Adam stepped into the night, the city, loud, messy, indifferent, made room for him in a way it never had before. This time not as a cleaner, but as the man who made them listen. If you believe in second chances and breaking barriers, share this story. To viewers in the USA, UK, and Canada, your voice matters. Together we can change the world.